We are calling to order our work and briefing session. Today is March the 3rd of 2020. No, Christmas was only just a few weeks ago. Time flies. Okay, we don't have a full agenda tonight, but it's a significant agenda in terms of 2 public hearings and 4 reports at the end and 2 executive sessions. And it's essential that we do have the 2 executive sessions before we go into city council. So we will do all that we possibly can to have at least a half hour for those 2 executive sessions if possible while we're still here in the briefing room before going to council. So if y'all can keep that in mind so we could move through, it would be greatly appreciated. So starting out, Mr. Hugman, we have the consent items to walk through briefly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight on your consent agenda, item 4A are the minutes for the February 2nd joint meeting with the Park Board, February 18th, the City Council regular meeting, February 18th, special City Council meeting, and a February 26th joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Item 4B is a resolution authorizing an application for a grant through the Homeland Security Department, Homeland Security Agency. This is for an emergency generator for the Summit Water Tank Pump Station. The grant amount, or the grant request, is for $200,000. It is a 75%, 25% match, so our share, if we are awarded the grant, would be $50,000. This pump station does not have an emergency generator. I do want to note, though, that we are in compliance with TCEQ requirements in that you have to be able to flow water either mechanically or with electrical means. If we have a problem with the pump station, we can pump water to the Clark tank from Daniel Dale Storage and from the North Main station. So we have the ability to serve all of our citizens with water if that station is down. But obviously having the generator for that pump station is the ideal situation. We have the money in the CIP to do the work, but of course we would prefer to get it grant funded 75%. So we are applying for this grant. You may recall we applied for a grant last year. We did not get that grant. We also have another opportunity later this year for another grant opportunity for the same thing. So we will apply for that as well, so that we'll have two shots at a grant.
So my question is, I think if I read the information correctly, it says that if we didn't get the grant, then we would buy the generator in fiscal year 21 or 22? 22.
Right.
Okay, so if we get the grant, then we'll just move that project forward.
Well, the time, or Greg is, or I don't know if the timing is.
So it takes a while for the grant to go through the process. So if they pick us up, we probably won't even get the funding until 21.
So we'll just put it in, we'll just program it in next year's budget then.
Yeah.
Matching.
We've been sort of carrying a $200,000 expense for it, pending. It started when we put in for our last grant. So we'll just carry it, and then if we don't get it, then we'll just have to buy it.
So it'll probably take us 6 to 9 months from the next grant application to know for sure whether we didn't get anything at all. And at that point, we said, okay, we're going to have to pay for it ourselves.
All right, so the timing of the award, we can work with that. Okay.
Item 4C is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Raytech Services. This is for replacement of water line along Link Drive. It's about 1,250 linear feet, and this will be upsizing from 6-inch and 8-inch pipe to 12-inch PVC water main. So that will increase water capacity to the apartments on Link Drive as well as those areas. So it's between Jellison and Camp Wisdom.
And when we do that sort of thing, does that improve the pressure to that particular area?
Yes.
It improves flow, improves water pressure, the overall supply for fire.
We don't have as good a water pressure here as we do at the lake.
Yeah, long range, I'm kind of getting off, I don't want to get up too far off, but long range, We know we need to address water pressure in the north side area, and we're looking at probably a new elevated storage tank in a few years. And that's what we're kind of working towards. Item 4D is a resolution authorizing renewal of Microsoft Office Suite software. This is a 3-year contract at an annual cost of $70,539 through CDWG. This provides the Microsoft Office 365 on all of our computers, and it also includes SharePoint, which is our document sharing and storage tool. Item 4E is a resolution authorizing exercise of eminent domain. We have discussed this before, and we will have an executive session to discuss and answer any other questions you may have on that item. And then item 4F is a resolution adopting the FY 2020 work plan. As you know, council at your retreat in September, you changed your capstones. So based on that, we had a staff brainstorming session to take those capstones and look at objectives and work plan items based on your all's discussion during that retreat, things that we knew we were already working on. And so we took all of that and put them into the revised, we'd already started working on the FY20 work plan, but then we went back and had to revise it significantly because of that. But that's based on your new capstones. And then we also changed the formatting, if you noticed. We put that into a different tool that we think is a little bit more easier to understand. It's easier for us to track and manage. And a number of those items, of course, we are already working on.
I'd like to pull that, table it, because you don't have the time tonight, but we need to go through some of these. I've highlighted them. There's misspelled words everywhere. There's a lot of stuff that we need to go over.
Okay. We can table it. Is there any deadline on that? That we're getting that approved?
That's our plan.
Just getting the work plan adopted. I take you on that. I sent it out to y'all a few weeks ago to look at. So.
We need to get together as a group and talk about stuff. We don't just get from staff, what you brainstormed and put together. We need to talk about it as a council.
Well, your input is acknowledged in deference to your understanding of our time pressure tonight. Probably the best thing to do, we can table it. If you would send an email to the city manager with those items for us to focus on for our next time, we can do that.
So you said table it until the next time?
I'm agreeable to tabling it.
Okay.
To the next council meeting.
With the provision that you send an email and let us know what your concerns are, so that
Well, there's a lot.
So that we can be prepared as a group to discuss your particular concerns.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. So the misspelled words could be emailed, but there's several ideas in here that we need to talk about.
Understood.
And it's too much for an email.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying to identify the points that you would like to have discussed in an email, so that we can be prepared to look at those particular items of concern to you.
Those are all the items on the consent agenda.
Sorry, Mayor, I guess I'd like to go back to that item, Rose. I mean, we did agree and talk about the work plan, so I can still say that we could go ahead and move forward, but if there's something we want to amend or something going forward, we can do that.
Any other inputs?
Well, anybody can pull an item, council member.
Correct.
And that's what I requested to do. Now, if you want to sit here and talk about it,
No.
that's fine with me.
That's what I'm saying, in deference to our time.
Because I did come prepared with it. Did you?
Is there consensus among us with conditional approval, or to table it until we have the information that Councilmember Jameson wishes us to discuss in detail? It is possible to do a conditional approval and still have a discussion at a later date without tabling it.
So really, what's the point of that?
Matter of process and procedure, that's all it is.
May I agree with you if if she is willing to provide specific information about the areas that need to be improved so that we can have something to focus on. That's the most efficient way, I think, to resolve it. But if there's nothing provided, we need to move forward.
The other option is to move it off of consent and move it to individual consideration tonight. You bring up everything that's on your piece of paper, and that means we're here till whenever.
That's right, and that's why I said, I don't mind waiting, and we talked about it, because I think there's quite a bit. It has the, even has the party on here, and the consultant. It has all sorts of stuff on here that we have not come to an agreement on, how we were gonna handle it. And it states it like that, that's what we're gonna do. And it's,
What party are you talking? The signature event?
it doesn't say that.
Doesn't say party.
It says event, and select a consultant.
It's understood as our
And
signature
that's just
event.
one of them. There's a lot of stuff.
But that has been the direction of the council. Are you saying that that was not the direction of the council?
I'm saying that we have changed some things since then, and we have.
But that is not.
And it
yes,
says
but
by
that is-
January 2020, it's still sitting on here, so that's not correct.
That is not, that item is very open-ended, but that was the council's direction, unless I am mistaken and did not understand what the council's direction was, but I believe that the council had directed us to move forward with the consultant. And the
We did, but it
the idea-
changed. And this didn't change, this didn't get corrected.
We can correct the date on that and move it out.
That's what I suggested, is there's a lot of stuff that needs to be corrected. That was what I suggested from the
We've
get-go.
been working on this for a while, so things have been fluid, and the dates have, we sent this out before, so yes, we can go back and change some of the dates, but.
But they should have been, before it
But
was
if-
presented for us to
if-
vote on.
So, Councilmember Jameson, if the concern is with typos and with dates, we can fix that. But if the concern, you make it sound like you don't want that item at all on the work plan, and so I guess I'm just not sure what it is that is the concern with the work plan.
Okay, and I think that we decided that I was going to let you know what my questions were and email that.
I don't know, I didn't hear the
But
decision
are
on
the- are
that.
the concerns the update
Yes,
of the
there's
dates?
other
Or
things.
is it the dates, or is it the actual items themselves? Because all the items themselves, we have previously approved.
Okay. You know what, do whatever you want. I don't, this is, to vote on something that is incorrect is sloppy, but, whatever. And there's misspelled words all through it. So, if you had all this time, why wasn't that corrected?
Aside from the typographical errors, is it basically updating dates in terms of
It's not
what's
just
transpired
updating
since we
dates.
had,
There's
since we had the retreat to where we are today? Is that the primary issue? Are those the primary issues of discussion?
There's some other questions that I have on here that I think we need to talk about.
And your
Do you
questions
want me to
differ.
start going through it? Because
No,
I mean.
no, and your questions differ from what the council has previously pursued and approved.
I don't know if this is the right spot, but I have, back when we did this, we know things differently today. One of the things that I talked to this manager about the other day was that it'd be nice if we had time throughout the year that we were able to dream and plan and think and change things like this as they evolve through the year. It seems the major corporation running what we are. And we only really do this once a year.
But a strategic document is fluid. Nobody's saying that as we go through a strategic process,
I'm just-
which this is, that it is
Some of it I don't
static.
even, I remember, I looked at it, I just don't, some of it I don't remember too.
Yeah,
So I'm just thinking
I think stuff's been added too.
as we go, I'd like to see us be able to think strategically along the way more, instead of just once a year. as a council together. So
I
don't know what
understood, but that's off topic of what we're trying to do with the work plan as it's been submitted to us today. We're talking about a process of strategic policy.
Yeah, okay, that's why I said, I'm not
So-
sure if this is the right thing, but
It is the
what I
right thing,
wanna
it's the
see.
work plan.
I don't agree with that, but Monty's got an idea in terms of how we as a council should operate strategically throughout the course of the year, which is a good idea. But the work plan itself is the basic formulation of what we're looking for to work through for an entire year. And it's a fluid process. And it remains open to adjustment and amendment as we go in terms of updating the work plan. I mean, staff gets up and updates us on their work plan all the time.
Okay, it's on the agenda for tonight. So either, if you want to, come out and talk about it, because I did highlight everything, and I've got notes, and we can do it, and we can stay here and go through it. You made the comment that you wanted to move forward, and if we could, go quickly. So I said, I'm fine with tabling it and coming back when we have more time. I don't want to just glaze over it because staff had a brainstorm and put it down like this.
Well, I'm not clear about your concern in terms of.
I know you're not, because
I
in
asked the
order for me to
question,
go
Are
through
your
it.
concerns about the fluidity of dates or their actual topics that you disagree with?
Actual topics and dates and misspelled words, all sorts of things. I have a whole lot of stuff here. We talked about this at some of these things, and he's right. We didn't talk about all this at retreat. And then he's told you, and it says in here some stuff about that staff brainstormed and they came back with something else that we did not talk about. And that we need to talk about as a council. I don't like being cut out. And we're voting on it. So we need to be clear what we're voting about.
Personally, I don't have, aside from the typographical errors, which can always be corrected with just change. I personally don't have a problem with anything that's in the work plan as stated, in terms of making it a discussion item that we have to say yay or nay to. The work plan itself is a document, it's a working document, and it's a fluid document. But I need some consensus. Councilmember Jameson has some valid points. And I started out by saying if they are of deep concern to her and she provides us very quickly with those information items that she wants us to consider so that we don't have to work through the entire process or the entire plan, we can take it up at the next meeting.
I'm with that.
I'm with that.
Me too.
Okay, the item is tabled with the condition that you send
That's
us
fine.
an email as quickly as
I
possible
wrote it down.
identifying the items.
And I'm
you
trying
wish
to,
have
out of
discussed.
respect for the time constraint,
Understood.
not go into it.
Okay. Item 4F is tabled. Conditionally. Okay. Moving on, we have an update and discussion regarding the citizen satisfaction survey. April Riley, please.
Good evening, council, guests, staff. My name is April Riley. I'm the Public Information Officer for this city. And I last visited with you on this topic back in December. We're going to be talking about the citizen satisfaction survey again at a very 10,000-foot level, and I'll go quick because I know you've got court business to take care of. I wanted to update you regarding Chelsea Cooper's help on this matter. She's done a lot of research for us. She's the administrative assistant for the city manager's office. And really what we're doing tonight is I'm looking for consensus and clarification on a couple items before we move forward with the RFP, the request for proposals document. So you've seen this slide, just briefly goals and objectives for the project. The citizen survey would be used to help inform our decision-making process. It helps identify the mix of programs and services to best meet the resident expectations. The survey would be uniquely designed for Duncanville to gather resident opinions about city services. We're looking to objectively quantify the satisfaction level of existing programs and services and further understand the perceptions of our residents regarding this city and the services that we provide. Utilizing a randomized sample source of residents that reflect Duncanville's diverse demographic is key for this project. That allows us to reach more people across the city and hear from residents who may not be typically engaged with City Hall. Professionally facilitated surveys are important because they provide well-researched, statistically valid data. These folks are trained in writing these questions so that they're not skewed. So regarding the consideration tonight, based on the research that we've done on several cities in the state of Texas, we're wanting council's input on how long the average person should take to complete this survey. And that impacts the number of questions on the survey. So for example, based on the research we've done, a survey should take approximately 10 to 15 minutes to complete. And at that 15-minute mark, our respondents start getting what's called survey fatigue. So they're gonna kind of clock out and quit taking that survey. So we wanna avoid people jumping ship, if you will. So at 10 to 15 minutes, that's approximately 40 questions on the survey. In front of you, we've got two different surveys. One's Farmers Branch, and the other one is from the city of Schertz, Texas. You can peruse these and see kind of what an approximately 40 question survey looks like. They obviously have multiple components under various questions. But that kind of gives you a good idea of what 10 to 15 minutes looks like. So council, this is information that we would need to put in our RFP document. If 10 to 15 minutes, approximately 40 questions works for you all, then we'll move forward with that guideline.
Did they put this online?
We looked at several cities who did various things. Some used direct mail, some used telephone surveys, some used online surveys. They all chose different methods.
Well, these two specifically, did they put these online? Do you happen to know?
Ms. Chelsea?
So Schertz used mail, and Farmers Branch used mail and online.
Well,
What we did in the past was we mailed out, and it was to like randomly selected.
Yes.
And when you say online though, was that still the random, they get a card saying go online to do a survey though, right?
Yes.
It's not just online for the general public.
Correct.
oh, it's not, so we don't make a public announcement to go online?
No, it has to be random. So you send a card though to people saying you've been randomly selected to take the survey. You can go to this website to take it.
What is a statistically valid population for the city of Duncanville on something like this? Do we know that yet?
Well, in the last presentation, I pulled it out of this one, we're shooting for 5% response rate. So that would be approximately 100 to 150 residents for each district. And in the RFP, it's written that it's very important that those 100 or so people that are responding are representative of the diversity within that district. Yes, sir. And again, that's why we hire professional firms to do this. It's a very specialized project.
Do you know what kind of percentage of reliability you get with a 5% return?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, if a professional consultant firm develops a survey and they say a 5% response rate, they're determining from past experience that's a statistically valid sample.
In the RFP, we outlined 95%.
Yeah. I know in marketing stuff, it's 2%. But for something like this, increasing that to 5% gives us a greater sense of reliability in terms of the inputs.
Did we look at the response rate from these other, get out there, everybody. Did we look at the response rate from Farmers Branch and from the other city?
Yes, sir, we did.
And theirs was what?
So Schertz was 409, and Farmers Branch was 1,050.
How many did they send
Yeah,
out?
what was the
percentage?
What percentage is that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have
We kind of need to know that.
Yeah, it always equates to a percentage.
I'm just thinking that the number of questions, depending on which way we go. The questions are, 40 questions is really too long of a question.
Well, that's kind of where I'm looking at, that's why I asked, how was this presented? Was it presented by mail or online? If it was online, this is overwhelming to the eye.
Even
The
if
brain
it's mailing
can't
is too long.
comprehend this online.
Yeah. Even if it's mailing is too long. You finish about, average about 7 minutes, you're finished.
And I don't think, looking at.
And that's not, if it's not phone, I'm hanging up.
But it's not really getting down, I don't think, into the weeds of some of the things that people are saying. It's sort of surface.
Well, I don't think that's April's concern. How the number of the number of questions and how much time we feel our citizens are going to take. The development of the questions is a totally different matter.
Yeah.
Right, it is.
And I think from what we're looking at, personally, I wouldn't do this. This is too long for me.
And it's not asking.
But I don't know. What do y'all think?
I don't think.
I don't think it should be more than a couple of pages.
Yeah, I mean, it's some good printed information, but I think you also have an option that if you like to continue to go from, you got to get 7 good quality questions. And then you have an option if you like to go further, you can, but you'll find out maybe won't, but you'll find out at least get those 7 to 10 hot topic questions in different categories. But yeah, 10 to 15 minutes for me, I'm like.
Just when I buy my car, they send me like stuff over and over and over and over, yeah, but about after 10 questions, is about all I can do. But I'll do them because they keep sending me, they're begging me to, fill the survey. So
can you shoot for 20?
We can shoot for 20.
But I think the Farmers Branch, like some of the stuff here, I mean, there's a lot of relevant stuff here.
Yes.
It has some relevant, it just isn't going down into what, I think it's like surface stuff, and I think that what we heard from citizens was that they wanted.
Right, but this is simply a template in terms of looking at, it's not looking at the depth of content, the questions asked. It's going to be a totally different matter. She just wants to know, is this too long a survey for us? And the
Is
answer
that the only question you had? Is it too long?
Well, that's the first question I have.
Okay.
So, and keep in mind, if we shorten this to 2 pages, for example, you're limited based on what you see here. That's the question length that we're limited to. So the scope of our survey may shrink because of this shorter instrument.
I don't know if you use the word
The advantage
pages.
to that is the focus gets tighter.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Instead
use
of
the word
being too general.
pages versus number. So I wouldn't say 2 pages, I would say number.
Yeah.
Counselor, are you comfortable with
What?
20 questions on this survey?
Yeah, I would think 20 would be
20?
about right.
20 tightly focused questions,
Yeah.
not general in nature, but very tightly focused.
In different categories, services,
I don't know why we're
opportunity,
bothering.
equality, yeah.
Well,
If you're gonna make it, if you're gonna cut it down that short, she's right, you're not asking any
But you
questions.
want people to answer, so you
They
want.
did before, and it was a lot longer. In fact, the results came out in a book that they printed for us. And they did answer.
Do you remember how many questions?
I do not, but it was, there's probably in the file back there
Yeah.
that you have it.
It's a National Research Center that did it.
Yeah.
The other thing to consider too, and then I know you're not getting into the questions themselves, but if you're too focused, then you have to ask yourself, is this repeatable in future years? So, if you're too focused on specific questions of issue today, is that going to be repeatable? And the idea of the survey is that you have repeatable data that you can establish your baseline and then look at it every couple of years to see if you're making improvement or you're addressing the needs and the issues. So just playing that too. But I also think that point about, if you make it too short, you're spending the money to do a survey. So I think you need to consider that sweet spot of getting as much data as you can and recognizing that you don't want to overburden people because then they won't take it.
So
Would it
how
be
about we leave the decision up to the consultant we eventually to hire?
I think they bring us back some of their thoughts.
Yeah. They can
I think
bring us
it's
back
good.
some. But see, like here's another question here, special community events, bluegrass, Christmas, etc. Some people might read that as you know, either or bluegrass or Christmas, no. You know what I'm saying? So,
Our 2011 survey had 21 questions plus a one-page demographic questionnaire. For your,
Okay.
yeah, because I didn't even notice, and down here is again, special community events, bluegrass or Christmas.
we can write in the RFP that we'd like pricing for 20 and 40 questions, 20, 30, 40, if that makes you more comfortable.
Is it one time a year?
We're looking at every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
Yes,
Once
so
every
we would
2
do the
years.
citizen satisfaction survey in 2020, and then we would do it again in 2022 and benchmark those responses.
I'm curious
That's
about
right.
something. Why wouldn't you just leave this online and let people come on and do it at any time they want it, and it just be an ongoing compilation?
You lose from a statistical validity aspect. The consultant is going to say, I have to know how many people you're going to get an effective response rate to say that the sample is statistically valid in terms of the input you get.
And
So,
then- and most likely-
It's all about the math, and you can't just blow it out there because you don't know what your response rate is because you don't know how many people have seen.
Right, and most people most likely will tell you what they don't like, and you won't get a diverse information of what is going well, so you get one
I
side.
can see that.
It's all about the math in terms of the statistics.
And some of these are so broad, like contact with city employees, and then the employee was respectful, courteous, had a positive tone. Well, at what department? What department did you contact?
So I like our speaker talking
District
about
five.
the 21 questions. I feel a little concerned though with doing it
Maybe Dr. Raymond
every
needs
other
to
year.
grouch.
Because it takes you too long
It's
to.
every 2 years.
Every 2 years. It takes you too long to build what you've learned from that survey to move on. If you're at least do it once a year.
Well, that's another point.
No, I have a problem with that because you need time to receive the results, digest them, change policies and procedures, and then allow time to see, to gauge if it works.
But you don't change, I'm not saying you change it that quickly, I'm just saying you get the information, and then you gather those 2 years of information. I can't take a survey from 2 years and expect to change everything on that survey. I have to look at the comparison, look and saying, this year you told me this year you told me that, here's some common items in both of those results of the survey, and that's how you beat it. I'm hoping that the
Are you saying to
company-
shorten the gap or lengthen the gap?
No, I'm saying you need to,
I don't know
I'm
which way
saying you cannot just say every 2 years for your survey. You will not get what you need from your survey in every 2 years. It's got to be at least once a year.
No.
I'm not saying you
No.
change what they're
No,
saying.
No professional surveyor is going to tell you to do a survey every year because
I will
you
tell you
can't
that,
pull it out that
I will
fast.
tell you from a corporate standpoint, they do it every time.
Yeah, and there are
you
some
get a result.
corporations do it internally, they screw things up pretty royal.
You know, I'm saying this is an outside company that's doing it every year for organization, and that don't mean you can go back and change it.
Well, if they're
But you
doing it
get
every
that-
year, my personal opinion, they're buying service. Or they're selling it, one or the other.
Nah, I'm gonna tell you, it is worked, and so,
I disagree, I agree with Pat, there needs to be a time lapse for things to happen and to be able to digest and be able to watch and change in what's going on in your city. Doing a survey every year, you're not gonna capture that.
you're not changing what they're telling you every year. You're taking that information, you're taking historical information that you're getting. But again, I would encourage you to at least listen to whoever is awarded the job, and let's get some of their professional opinion as well.
That would be something to discuss with them, and then that's a council decision, it's a
Right.
budget decision as well.
Yeah, don't lock yourself in right now.
And on an RFP, instead of saying number of questions, tell them time involved in taking it and seeing how many questions they can incorporate and what they think the human mind in today's society can absorb in X amount of time. And how many questions to put into that time factor, rather than us coming up with a numerical factor.
And there's 11 questions down here that are just about, like, are you male or female, what's your age group, ethnic background, category of your total gross annual household income, 11 of them. So, I mean, if you got 20, you'd only have 9 questions left for, about the city.
Okay. So we'll let the consultant educate us and do what's best with
Good.
our money.
So the other question I had for you this evening is the method for resident feedback regarding questions that might be included on this survey. That was something that was brought up at our December meeting. So what we've recommended to get resident feedback is to have a virtual town hall. And I can't take credit for that. Paul Frederickson actually mentioned virtual town hall, and that's the perfect word for this. What we would do is we would create a dedicated email inbox, survey2020@duncanville.com, and we would push that email out so that residents could email us what kinds of questions they think should be included on this survey. We would also set up suggestion boxes at City Hall located in the utility billing area and at the library so that people walking in could write in suggestions for questions they'd like to see asked on this survey. We would collect this information for 2 weeks. And the city would do the collecting, and then we would pass it on to the vendor. And at that point, it would be compiled into the list of overall questions that we would be considering for this survey.
That's good.
Does that sound good to everyone?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
I do every once in a while.
21st.
Yes,
21st
I had to give him credit.
Culminating.
So regarding a timeline, once we publish this RFP, and with your direction tonight, we can do this in the next couple of weeks. It'll take about 4 months for you guys to see the analysis on your survey results. So we're looking at September for presenting those findings to you.
Okay,
With that, that's all I have.
very good. Okay,
You have all the input you needed, right, April?
Yes, sir.
okay, we are going to recess our briefing session. The time stamp is 6:37. We're going into executive session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm calling to order our City Council meeting of City of Duncanville, the 3rd of March, 2020. The time stamp is 7:20. Thank you for your patience with us while we went through executive session. At this time, we will have our invocation by Brian Bowman from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Mr. Bowman, please rise.
Father, we come before Thee this evening to thank Thee for the many blessings that we've been given, grateful for the opportunity, for the land that we live in, for the freedoms that we are able to enjoy, and for the opportunity that we have to vote our conscience. We ask a blessing upon military, police, and fire, and others who serve and protect us, and ask and pray a special blessing upon them that they may be able to return home to their loved ones and family without any harm or accident. We ask a blessing upon this council as they served this community, that they may be led and guided by Thy Spirit, that they can do the will of the people and be able to do what's best for this community. We ask a blessing upon the people that live in this community, that they may love and serve each other and be able to love one another. And we humbly pray and ask for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. It is my pleasure to bring forward 5 worthy properties that we found in Duncanville. I say we, the Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board. We have 5 dedicated members who drive these districts and select these properties. And so we'll get right into the recognition. I would like to ask that if you are in attendance tonight in one of these properties, would you please come down at the end of this and we'll get a group picture together. So we'll start off with District 1. We have Billy and Lucille Weaver at 1360 Green Hills Court. District 2 is Doyle Davis at 335 Brookwood Drive. Our representative from District 3 is Juan and Rosa Macias at 618 Madison Court. District 4 is James and Edna Bollinger at 1602 Stratford Lane. And then District 5 is Jimmy Protavinsky at 1110 Oriole Boulevard. And so do we have anyone in attendance tonight that was one of these winners? All right, seeing none, what we do is the council, for each of these districts, council districts, we have one of our board members actually go put a sign in their yard and give them a goodie bag as well. And so with that, we just should recognize and applaud all of these efforts from these worthy candidates. And we do have a gardening workshop this Saturday from 9 to noon as well. So if you want to continue this tradition at your place, come learn some about that from Dallas County Master Gardeners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Moving on to item number 2B, a proclamation recognizing Severe Weather Awareness Week, March 1 through 7 of 2020 in the city of Duncanville. I will present that, and Ms. Pat Weaver will accept that. Whereas each year brings the potential for violent weather to Texas, including the city of Duncanville, which could be devastated by flooding, tornadoes, hail, windstorms, wildland fires, and other emergencies. And whereas the Texas Division of Emergency Management and the National Weather Service have joined together to urge all citizens to prepare for severe weather events and to educate themselves on safety strategies. And whereas the National Weather Service has declared March 1 through 7, 2020 as Severe Weather Awareness Week, the city of Duncanville would like to declare March 1 through 7, 2020 as Severe Weather Awareness in the city of Duncanville. During Severe Weather Awareness Week, Texans are advised to assemble an emergency preparedness kit of important emergency supplies, including a first aid kit, a NOAA weather radio or battery-powered radio, flashlight, medication, non-perishable food items, and bottled water. Be aware of your nearest storm shelter locations, know where family will go if evacuation is necessary, and develop an emergency plan for communicating with family and friends. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Barry L. Gordon, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, and on behalf of the City Council of Duncanville, do hereby proclaim March 1st, 2020 as Severe Weather Awareness Week in Duncanville. And Ms. Pat Weaver, as a very capable representative of the CERT, which is
Community Emergency Response Team.
We are proud to present this to you, and thank you for all your service and all the members of CERT.
Thank you. Thank you. I just really want to take a moment and tell you all that we do have a class coming up. It's March 28th and April 4th. It is a 2 Saturday work days. It takes 2 full Saturdays to complete the class. But in completing the class, this is a little bit of what you learn. On the first day, it includes an introduction to help yourself, your family, and your neighbors in an emergency. Command Center, the medical first aid, disaster preparedness. On the second day, you will have fire suppression. That is, learning how to handle a fire extinguisher. I'm sure there's a lot of you that have not. But this we teach. It also teaches disaster preparedness, and it also teaches search and rescue. Then we have disaster psychology, because being a member, there are certain aspects of it that you may feel. And if you can talk to a council person that is there with you on the team, then it helps you work with the rest of the group. But this is a very important class, and we want everyone to take it. So this way it will help your community and help yourself. And if you need a 72-hour kit, go get one of the buckets out at Home Depot or Ace Hardware and fill it with your 72-hour supplies. When you're ready to run out of the house, grab it. But make sure you have all your medical in it. That is probably the most important. But that's a quick way to have a 72-hour kit. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 4 on the agenda, the consent agenda, and the city secretary will read those items. I will note that item 4F has been tabled and will be addressed at a subsequent city council. City secretary.
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the February 2nd joint meeting with the Park Board, February 18th City Council regular meeting, February 18th special City Council meeting, and the February 26th joint meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Item 4B, consider a resolution authorizing the application for and receipt of a grant from the Texas Division of Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant Program through the Federal Emergency Management Agency in cooperation with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, funding the acquisition of one emergency generator for the Summit Water Tank Pump Station with a total grant value of $200,000, of which the federal share awarded will be $150,000, with the city of Duncanville contributing a 25% cash match in the amount of $50,000. 4C, consider a resolution authorizing award of bid number 20-014 to Raytech Services LLC for water utility improvements to install 1,250 linear feet of 12-inch PVC water main along Link Drive through the city's competitive bid process, an estimated expenditure amount of $332,783.87. 4D, consider a resolution authorizing the renewal of a Microsoft Office 365 subscription from CDWG through the National IPA Purchasing Cooperative Contract number 201-8011-01 for the 3-year contractual discounted price at $70,539 annually, with a total 3-year expenditure of $211,617. 4E, consider a resolution authorizing the exercise of eminent domain by the City Council for properties located at 308 and 232 West Camp Wisdom Road, Duncanville, Dallas County, Texas, providing the necessity for acquisition of title to land and improvements for a fire station and other appropriate public purposes.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Please vote. Consent items are approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, items for individual consideration. Item 5A and 5B are public hearings. And in accordance with the policies established by our council, the manner in which the public hearings are conducted is something I need to cover so everybody understands how we do this. The staff member is going to brief the item, and at that point, then we'll open it up to a public hearing. And I will then allocate 10 minutes for those in support and those in opposition. And it's an aggregate 10 minutes. So the number of people that are in support have to be considerate of the time factor. And so if there, I see there are several cards here on item 5A. So if someone, the first person I call up has something to say and you support what that person is saying, it's not necessary to reiterate everything. You can just say, I support what's been said, and that can keep us within the 10-minute time frame for both those in support and those in opposition. So we'll help you along with that. It's fluid. Don't think that, we're just going to be, hard about this, but that's the manner in which we can conduct this and keep everything going in order. So the first item 5A, conduct a public hearing, 2020-01, and consider an ordinance to amend the existing general retail GR district zoning to include a special use SUP permit for a daycare center on Lot 52, Woodland Hills Edition, more commonly known as 1411 South Cockrell Hill Road, Duncanville. Mr. Ramey.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, I'm Greg Ramey, the Public Works Director. As you know, Chastity Allen, our planner, moved on to another opportunity 2 weeks ago, and so I'm representing this briefing tonight. Again, the case is to consider a request for an SUP at 1411 South Cockrell Hill Road. This is at the request of the owners, Clayton and Lamessa Logan, who are here tonight. The subject property is in Opportunity Area 2. Again, this Opportunity Area is presented in the comprehensive plan. The vision was for commercial properties or commercial development along US 67 with mixed use and the balance of the area, and I'll show you a map later in the briefing. Again, this subject property used to be a house. It was originally a house, but it was vacant over 6 months ago, and it used to be legal non-conforming, and so now it's has to meet the zoning requirements as presented on our zoning map. Again, just an aerial for this property. It's the yellow box, and so if you look at the lower right-hand corner, the green triangle represents Opportunity Area 2. Up at the peak of the triangle is the Papado's Seafood Restaurant. And again, you see 1411 Cockrell Hill is the yellow box, just north of the intersection of Daniel Dale and Cockrell Hill Road. Again, the scope is to convert the house into a 1,000 square foot daycare. You'll see how many children that they're considering in the hours. They would have 4 employees. Again, this is a map representing the notification radius, and we'll talk about how many went out and the findings later in the briefing. Here again is the current zoning. So this is general retail, and 1411 is represented by the red box. Some background for parking. The zoning ordinance requires 1 off-street parking for every 15 children. It talks about as well the paving and the unloading areas. They're considering 6 parking spaces, and we have a site plan, again, later in the briefing and included in your slides. There would be some minor renovations that the property owner would have to make in order to make this facility meet code as well as the daycare licensing. At the time, when they follow up after this, if you approve it. And again, they're going to propose to make 6 parking spaces and have the site circulation. Again, those are shown on the later in the briefing. So the landscaping and building design. So again, we have the landscaping. This is just the typical landscaping that's set out in the zoning ordinance, and there will be a playground area fenced at the rear property. Again, you'll see that in your map. We talked about all the special use permits. Again, that's the zoning, so your special use permit sort of overrides the underlying zoning, and it's up to you, City Council, to make those approvals and to recommend any conditions. As we talked about before, the surrounding land use, it's in general retail, and then there's some residential areas to the east across Cockrell Hill Road. And here's the site plan. The building is the red outline, And then you see the parking to the rear and then the playground area. And then it's a long lot, and so the back part is basically turned over to floodplain. Here is the proposed floor plan that was submitted, showing the use of the different rooms. And again, this is currently zoned general retail. If you convert it, you'd have to meet all the daycare requirements. And again, this is up to council, but this is not part of or within the current vision of the Opportunity Area 2 for your consideration. This is an infill lot. As you can see here, there's a little bit of land available at the front, and then the remaining of it is floodway, which is the light blue, as well as floodplain, which is the dark blue. And then there's some conceptual photos of what they would intend to do at their location. And we'll leave these up here for, again, when the owners come up and talk. Just some more considerations of what they envision for this daycare. We did send out 14 notices, and we received no responses. P&Z voted 3-2 in favor of this SUP with the conditions shown. And then I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, for the public hearing, subject to your questions.
What I would like to do at this point is call forward the owner applicants to see if they have any comments before we proceed, and at that point then I'll open the public hearing. And I'll also advise that if any of the individuals that say anything during the public hearing that you wish to comment on, I will call you back up to make some comment in terms of what they've said in support or opposition to what you say. So please. It's Mr. and Ms. Logan, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. I'm Lamisa Logan, and this is my husband, Clayton Logan. We are requesting a special use permit to operate a child care center at 1411 South Cockrell Hill, Duncanville. We plan to operate from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We anticipate being licensed from the state child care licensing agent for 20 to 25 children, age 0 months to 5 years. We plan to have 4 qualified caregivers and use a curriculum-based age-appropriate lesson plan. The center would operate year-round and is located in a great area in Zone 4 in the center of homes, schools, workplace, and freeways. There are currently no Duncanville daycare centers in the Zone 4 district or on the entire east side of Highway 67. Education and structure is and have always been very important to my husband and myself. We are educated, hardworking residents of Duncanville, and we both have 35+ years of experience in the child care business, working with parents, children, teachers, and child care licensed representatives. The first 10 years of my professional career, I worked in the juvenile system. I currently work for Dallas County, where I have been employed for 28 years. My current position is Chief Investigator for the Public Defender's Office. My husband works for UPS, and he's been a driver for the last 20+ years. We have a son and a daughter, both of whom have college degrees, and they both work in professional jobs, professional careers. My grandmother started one of the reasons why we're wanting to do this is my grandmother started a family daycare in Oak Cliff over 50+ years ago. I started working with my grandmother at the center when I was 14 years old. She passed away 11 years ago, but the center is still successful today, 50+ years later, and it's currently being ran by my mother, my sisters, and myself, and my husband helps as well. We often today still have parents and children coming back to the family center to thank us for the structure and strong educational values that we instilled in them or in their children. Most of the children have gone on to college, and they have successful careers and families today. I am now eligible to retire from Dallas County. My husband, in a couple of years, plan to retire, and we plan to devote full time to building a legacy for our children and our grandchildren. If given the opportunity, we're excited to bring a quality, structured, family-oriented, love-based center that believes in education to the Duncanville area. And as Mayor Gordon said about the second graders that you met, we plan to have them prior to that, so you'll be even prouder. Thank you very much.
I don't have anything to say. She said it all.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry. We do have two, I know you have some cards.
I've got several cards here.
Yes, but only two are planning to speak. The others are
I've got
just here
that.
for support.
Yeah,
Okay,
in fact,
thank
on the
you.
card, it notes that they do not wish to speak but support, so I will make that part of the record.
Okay.
And so for council, we will go through the hearing, and then we'll open it up for, if there's any response by the applicants to what's said during the hearing, then I will call them forward, and then we, council, will go into discussion on the matter. Okay, so we just know how we're going to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I do have several cards here, and just for the record, the first few, it indicates I do not wish to speak, but please record my support. So officially, in support of this action item is Irma Griffin. Irma Griffin unfortunately did not give us her address. We will have to capture that, City Secretary, subsequent to the meeting. Dana Waters at 1109 Marissa Lane says she does not wish to speak, but please record support for this. I'm looking at this as, is it Naomi Butler? Is that close? Close enough? It's okay. She does not wish to speak, but is in support of the action item. Frank Jackson, 1102 Bradley, is in support, but does not wish to speak. Ebony Womack is in support, but does not wish to speak. The next two cards I have, the individuals do wish to speak, so at this time I'm not sure, I'm going to open it this way. We're going to start with a 10-minute time frame for those that are in support of this particular action item. So is Leroy Griffin and Crescenda Moore in support of, in opposition to the item? Support. Both support? Okay. Leroy Griffin, please come forward, and City Secretary, please start the 10 minutes when Mr. Griffin begins to speak.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilman. I won't be able to speak 10 minutes. That's a pretty good while. Anyway.
You got 2 minutes, actually.
Oh, 2. I'm here in support.
We bind it all together.
I got you.
No, I'm sorry. You can speak more.
I'm here in support of Lamisa Logan and Clayton Logan regarding the nursery that they plan to open up if they get approval. I met Lamisa about 27 years ago. She and I used to work together with the Dallas County Public Defender's Office. I was an investigator. She hired on as an investigator, and I was given the task of training Lamisa. So I trained her, and she trained very good. She was very good at what she was doing. Anyway, when I retired, Lamisa remained, and she's still there now, but my understanding that she's chief investigator, so she's over the whole unit of the Dallas County Public Defender's Office for investigators. We also attend church together. At the church, Ms. Logan is a team leader of several ministries within the church, and one of them being of the Ushers Board, the Senior Star Ministry, and I think there's another one, but I can't think of it right now. Duncanville would be, Ms. Logan and Mr. Logan would be an access to Duncanville if their project is approved. There are some very good people. I've known them for all these years, and everything I see in them is good. So I hope that they are approved, and I am in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Crescenda Moore. And please state your name and address for the record, please.
I am Crescenda Moore, 4315 Lashley Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75232. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Councilman. I am again in support of Lamisa Logan and Clayton Logan having this permit for daycare. I am one of the original members of the daycare Tom Thumb Nursery in Dallas. So 50+ years ago, I was an attendee. 4 years after that, my brother was an attendee, and then 18 years after that, my nephew was an attendee of the child care center. We are still friends to this day, 50-plus years later. And so when she and her husband told me that they were interested in having this facility, I thought no better person to have this. The background and the background that they have, as well as the background that we received as members of the daycare center, still the foundation that laid. I am a degreed professional, as well as my brother and my nephew. So the foundation that we received from the daycare center, the legacy still carries on. And so again, I am support, and hope that they get this permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals wish to speak in support? Seeing none, I will close this portion of our public hearing in support of the action item. We don't necessarily have to do that, right? City Attorney? Yeah. Well, we're not closing the public hearing, I'm just closing that portion of it in support. Okay, we'll now open it up to the portion of the public hearing, those in opposition. Anyone in opposition, please come forward. Seeing none, I will close that portion of the public hearing in opposition to this particular action item. So now I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing, and we have a second. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please vote. Thank you. The item is passed. I will open the item up now to discussion by City Council. Council members, do you have any discussion? Ms. Jameson.
I just would like to hear from staff on what you usually tell us what your take is on it.
Well, again, the main thing from where I sit in terms of for your consideration is that council voted on and approved a comprehensive plan, of which this is identified as Opportunity Area 2, which had a specific vision in store for it. This particular project is not necessarily, I guess it would be up to council on whether or not they feel that this daycare and this use meets the vision of Opportunity Area 2.
Were you Were you at the P&Z meeting?
I was not.
You would. What staff person was?
It was Athena, and at the time this was still Chastity.
Oh, okay. So Chastity's not here. I'm just curious what the comments were because the vote was 3-2. Do we know?
So there's no knowledge of what the opposition was? It was a 3-2.
My understanding from Commissioner Zilka was that, at least for him, he was one that did not vote in favor because he felt that it was not in accordance with the vision for Opportunity Area 2.
Okay.
That was his, what he had shared.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Anderson?
What is the vision for that area? Can you just tell
Sure,
me?
let me go back to the map of the area here. So what we have generally in the triangle, and let me see if the laser pointer works. Well, that won't help you all. If you look at the frontage road along US 67, that was really the vision was a mainly commercial, larger commercial. Right now it's a lot of little smaller shops. And then really where you see all the woods would be more of the mixed use, residential, higher density residential along, again, where the woods are. So that would be along Cockrell Hill as well as along the Daniel Dale.
Looking at the graphic here, Mr. Ramey, the wooded area that we see along where 1411 South Cockrell Hill Road is,
Yes.
is that's undeveloped land, that is wooded land, or there's residences stuck in there that we can't see?
Yes, sir. Let me,
Oh,
so this is
okay.
probably a good picture here. And so what you're looking at, 1331 is that SUP for the event center, but that's currently vacant. But 1407 and heading south, 815, there are some houses that are remaining there.
And we did
So-
query those individuals and got no responses.
That's, well, based on we queried 14, and so 1419 through 1407, and then again to the
Right. The
east
legal
and west, but
notification
there
was
no
accomplished with no response.
Notification, or no notice, or no response, I'm sorry,
Okay.
of the notice.
Okay. Any additional discussion from council?
If no discussion, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we pass this SUP.
There is a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and we have a second. All in favor, please vote. Motion is denied. Council, I'll comment that I find it interesting that there's a denial, but nobody, except Ms. Jameson, chose to voice any discussion about that, and I think that it's not understandable.
Yeah, I would agree, Mayor. I think that the area opportunity, if we look at this, and I know it's already passed now, but area opportunity, I understand that the opportunity is on Cockrell Hill, but as we look, the only business on that Cockrell Hill is Papados coming down the other way. I just think this daycare would have, though it required an SUP, would have not hurt our opportunity areas as well facing on Cockrell Hill. So I would hope that our colleagues would have passed this as well.
Mayor,
I hope if given another opportunity that we would reconsider this.
Mayor, is it all right? I mean,
I'm not real sure, Mr. Anderson. Yeah, go ahead.
I know what plans say and zoning says what we want in this idealistic world, and sometimes, the market speaks, and you have to take, it may not be the biggest, fanciest thing out there, but you have to kind of look at what is the best of what's realistic sometimes. And I think given the way this site has got these little chopped up sites and stuff, it's going to be hard to ever put a bunch together over here. And I would like to one of the reasons that I would like to see the council do more strategy and planning along the way is to be able to talk about these kind of things a little more before we get out here. That's all I'd like to say.
Moving on to item 5B. Conduct a public hearing 2020-02 and consider an ordinance to revoke a special use permit for an assisted living facility, ordinance number 2253, and retain the existing single-family residential district R 1.8 zoning on Lot 1B, Block Yalk, Irwin Kiesler, Development Redbird Unit 1, more commonly known as 1119 Dula Circle. Mr. Ramey.
Again, Mayor and Council, good evening. Again, this is to revoke the SUP for this property. I do want to make a note that Stan Smith was representing the owners at the P&Z. He is here tonight. I don't know if the owners are here just for your consideration because Stan Smith is there. Again, here's the aerial of 1114 Dula Circle. As you can see, it's a house in the residential area. You see the area of request, and we did send all notices to all those adjacent properties. Again, the current zoning is residential as shown with the SUP in the middle. Again, the applicant is still the owner. They never used occupy the space as an assisted living facility. So they got this SUP in August of 2015, and now we're just, they want to remove that SUP and just return it back to its residential use.
It has been a residential care home.
You'll have your opportunity to speak, Mr. Smith, not at this moment. Thank you.
We did send out 23 notices. We did get 3 responses in favor and 1 response in opposition. They were just basically where they checked the box, how they felt, and there was really no comment on either way. Again, the recommendation from P&Z was that we approve the revocation of this SUP and retain the residential zoning that underlies it, subject to your questions.
Okay, we will follow the procedure I employed earlier on the first public hearing. This public hearing will be opened, and each side in opposition or support will be given 10 minutes in the aggregate time to make their presentation. But before doing that, as I did before, Mr. Smith, you are here as the representative of the applicant. You will now have some time to come forward and speak to us, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Stan Smith, 344 Fouts Avenue, Duncanville, Texas, 75137. This facility was a residential care home, and it has been all the way up until very recently. I guess last summer or something, the last of their citizens, of their occupants, moved out. So it's been a quiet neighbor, good neighbor, but the house is currently being updated and renovated. It's going to go back on the tax rolls at a much higher rate, and I would encourage you to remove the SUP and return it back to just a residential care home. It could still be it could just return it back to a normal residence, but it could be a residence care home, but there's really no need for a special use permit right now, since it's just going to be occupied hopefully by a family.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing at 8:17, and we'll start with those individuals in support. Any individual in support of this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the hearing in support. Any individuals in opposition to this item, please come forward. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to close and a motion and second, closing the public hearing. Please vote. Public hearing is closed at 8:18. Okay, we'll now open up the item to discussion by council. Council members, do you have any discussion or questions for Mr. Ramey? Ms. Jameson.
Yes, this is my district, and there has been a lot of conversation about that facility. At one point, there were people that were going up to doors that had left the facility, and they were confused as to where they were. I've had calls about the trash, a tremendous amount of trash. I am all for removing the SUP, sending it back to a residential area, and not going back to a facility in the middle of the neighborhood. It has caused problems over the year, a lot.
Okay. Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to see the revocation of the special use permit. So I'll be supporting it.
Okay. Any additional comments from council? Any additional discussion? Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second, Mr. Harvey. Please vote. Motion is passed. Thank you. Item 5C, take any necessary action as a result of executive session. Reporting there is no action to be taken as a result of executive session. Moving on to item number 6, staff and board reports. Item 6A, receive the FY20 first quarter investment report as of December 31st, 2019. Mr. Summerlin.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So, a summary of our activity for the quarter, we began our investments at $61.2 million, and we ended this quarter at December 31st, 2019 at $66.7 million in investments. If we look at our investments by type, you can see that we're stratified out with certificates of deposit at about 48%, our government pool, logic pool at 18%, and then we have 34% in money market funds. And with today's interest rate drop by the feds, I'm very glad to have that stratification because most of those CDs are locked in at a much higher rate than prevailing rates as of today. In fact, they're probably higher than you could have gotten over the past several months. So I feel very fortunate to have that. Whereas the money markets are indexed and the interest rate that I'm earning currently will probably index down. If we look at investments by maturity, 37 million under 30 days, and then I've got it laddered out with 5 million in 30 to 90 day investments, 3 million 90 to 180 days, 18 million 180 days to 1 year. Those funds in there are the things that are primarily tied to the bond monies, and when we anticipate that we'll be needing to have those maturities to pay for the bond projects, and then 3 million at 1 to 2 years. This chart represents the yield summary. The top blue line is the city's portfolio performance in terms of yield percentage. The green line below that is the logic investment pool that I just spoke of. And then the purple line below that is Tech's pool, which is another government pool. And then the red line at the bottom, excuse me, is our 90-day T-bill. So you can see that the overall blended performance exceeded all of those benchmarks. And then this is a summary of the interest revenue that we earned by the different funds within the city. Most of it, of course, going to the general fund at $116,000 for the quarter, and then $132,000 going to capital projects construction fund, which again, that represents the $21 million that we have in bond funds. And overall, the interest earnings for the quarter were $332,000. Any questions?
Yeah, could you go back to the trend line chart, please?
Yes, sir.
So for the quarter, everything is in decline, but they're all in relative decline to each other.
Correct.
From what it appears. You mentioned that one of the funds is indexed. Which one was that, and what's it indexed to?
Well, going back here to the money market, both the logic pool and the money market funds are indexed, and they're indexed to T-bills. And I could not quote you the exact amount that they're the T-bills plus a certain number of basis points, and I forget if it's 25 or 30 or 40 basis points above T-bill.
So those indexes are insulated from what's happening in the Dow.
They're insulated. Well, yes, of course they're insulated from the Dow. I mean, but they're indexed to the
well, I was just trying to reconcile in my mind that the upwards trend line of the Dow during the quarter was remarkable. We hit historical highs, and then looking at the trend line for our investments, it's in sustainable decline.
We've seen the interest rates, drop for the last several months, and then
So the better the market does, the lower the interest rate in terms of what we can gain.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any questions? Nope, thank you very much. Moving on to item 6B, receive the monthly financial report as of January 31st, 2020.
Thank you, Mayor Council. So I always like to, of course, show an index, and since this is the 4th month of the fiscal year FY20, we should have a benchmark of 33% to measure the revenues and expenditures against. So our general fund ending unreserved fund balance was 18.8 million, 212 days of operations. As I've said many times before, we collect most of our property taxes, so that is reflective of us collecting property taxes early in the year. So we'll be spending that down because we won't be collecting nearly as much property tax after the month of February. And so that's reflected in the second bullet because our property taxes are at 83.5% of their budget. And then overall, the general fund revenues are at 54.9% of the budget, which is well in excess of the benchmark, and our operating expenditures are 27% of the budget, so a little bit under the benchmark, which is good. This represents the general fund revenues. The purple line would be if we earned our revenues evenly as they're budgeted over time. The realistic is that the blue line you see, that's a 3-year average, and then our actuals are the red line. So you can see that spike that starts in November, December, January, February. Same thing here with the property taxes. That's the primary component of those general fund revenues as it spikes up. Our sales tax, we've been trending along just barely above that 3-year average. And then our expenditures, we've been just, as I noted, we're just below what the benchmark is, or just below that 33% benchmark. Utility fund summary outlook. The unreserved fund balance is 2.9 million. That's 55 days of operations. Utility solid waste revenues, of course, are 1 month in arrears due to our billing process. And then the sanitation fund has an ending fund balance of 700,000, which is approximately 63 days of operation. Same concept as the general fund, but looking at the utility fund revenues. And of course, during the typically from the March to April time frame, when things start greening up, people tend to start using more water. So you see that amount of revenues increase during that time frame. Our expenditures are trending right along the budgeted line, a little bit above the 3-year average. And then these are our one-time projects. The status at January 31st, 2020, and the ones that are in yellow there are projects that have been completed. The others are still in process. And at this point in time, we have about 75,000 in savings from completed projects. Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 6C, receive the Economic Development Annual Report. Ms. James.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. If you would indulge me, if you can see, I would like to do the quarterly report first, if that's okay with you, because there's some items that overlap, and therefore I won't repeat myself, if that's okay with you all.
So we're going to flow from D to C.
Yes. Is that okay? Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, I'd like to start out, as we always do, and talk about our fiscal year 20 items that we're working on, which are also in correlation with our community enhancement program for the EDC, which is our strategic plan. So with the number 5 being the city capstone for city council, that's grow Duncanville's culture, sports, and tourism. Objective 1.35 is to hire an ED intern and develop a building database. If council remembers, during the budget planning session, we had talked about that. That would allow us to save money in the future, because this way, what we do for economic development, we're able to use that building database to track what buildings are available and what buildings that we can promote to developers or prospects in the future. So that way we're not continually paying a consultant to provide that information to us. Objective 2.03 is to identify potential locations and costs associated with opening a co-working space and creating a Duncanville model. Again, this is part of the DCEDC's CEP program. It is started. We have looked at a couple different locations, and we have been researching different models, and we have toured a couple models, staff, and then some of the board members have toured them as well. 2.05 is to explore opportunities to acquire key properties for seller in foreclosure. And as City Council knows, we have started that, and the DCEDC is looking at moving towards purchasing a key piece of property that you all have been involved with in those discussions, possibly in the future. Objective 2.06 is research and develop a CVB program and plan for City Council. This will be something that we've discussed internally for a number of years, and it will be presented to you at the budget meetings for you to consider. And again, the reason why that kind of fits with this is because, as we know, that tourism is one of the cleanest forms of economic development. Objective 2.07 is expand business development marketing efforts. This is ongoing. We added another recruitment event this year, and you'll see that later on that we attended. And so we constantly look for different ways to promote Duncanville to developers and prospects. 2.08 is market vacant city-owned properties. This is ongoing. Again, this will be one of those things with our building database, as well as with our website, that we will be doing, is highlighting those vacant properties once we can vet them all from the ED standpoint, as well as having RFPs, putting RFPs together to put these properties out on the market. And this is something that we will be working with finance on doing. We have done some properties, as you all are aware of, that I've talked to you in the past about RFPs that we went out for. But we'll be looking at some of those other scattered parcels that we've had on the books that we'd like to get back on the tax rolls. Moving on, in terms of our time frame for our quarterly report, again, that runs from December to March. Existing businesses, in terms of business retention and expansion efforts, we worked with 18 different existing businesses. You can see there the different things that we provide them, everything from leads to assistance with the development process. Maybe they have an expansion taking place in their current business, or maybe they're needing assistance with other departments or who they can get in touch with to get their needs met. Property owners and property managers, we worked with 12 different property managers. In terms of developers and new business prospects that we engaged through our different initiatives and our recruitment efforts that we had, we did engage 15 different developers and brokers, 3 retailers, 15 restaurants, 3 manufacturers. Those manufacturers, unfortunately, we do get those leads from the state as well as from the Dallas Chamber of Commerce. Occasionally we get a lead from different contacts. However, most of the time they do want larger buildings, 50,000 square feet plus, and usually they want more acreage than we have available here in Duncanville, in addition to entertainment venues. Moving on, in terms of the market update and highlights for this time frame, you will see there that we had 38,138 square feet of commercial space was either leased or built out during this time period. That include essentially 15 new businesses, 2 new restaurants, and 3 new retail stores. And you'll see there a picture of the new Papa's Barbecue that we're very excited that came online. Additional activities that the ED staff and board participate in during this quarter, staff does continue to assist the fire department with their acquisition for land. In addition, staff did attend, this is one of the new initiatives that I spoke about earlier, attended the Great American Franchise Expo in Irving. This was recommended to us by another city in terms of an opportunity to promote Duncanville, and so we did go there and speak with different franchisees, but companies looking to expand in different areas, and so we were able to gather some leads from that effort. ED staff was also working with finance, as we talked about earlier. This specific item is actually, though, in relation to the contract for the demolition for the property on I-20 that DC EDC owns. And we anticipate that getting underway here in the next month. In addition, ED staff attended the Red River States Conference and Deal-Making event. This is one of the major events that we do attend, and that's just a picture of the event as it was beginning to open. And this is where we get a number of our leads from developers and retailers. Additional activities included board members and staff attended Best Southwest Luncheon. The board did reappoint Steve Dial, and you all know this, Steve Dial as president and Derwin Broughton as vice president of the EDC. In addition, the board did approve a $75,000 loan for the Main Station Duncanville LTD partnership. And then also our board president, Steve Dial, did attend a partnership meeting with them. And again, that was to actually kind of repurpose some existing spaces and make them more usable to increase density in Main Station. In addition, board members and staff also attended the Mayor's State of the City address, and there's a nice picture there of the mayor. He did recognize 2 businesses, Redbird Skateland, and as well as Quality Aspirators. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Did you just cover both?
No, sir.
That's what I didn't think. Okay, so we have just covered
The quarterly.
the quarterly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, questions on the quarterly. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Go back to slide 76, I think it is.
Okay.
Nope, one more, 75. Okay. In the manufacturing side, the last week or week before, the Dallas Business Journal published their minority business leaders. They recognized them from the entire city or the Metroplex. And I looked through those individuals that were recognized by the Dallas Business Journal, and I was wondering if there's been any contact with the Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I picked that up from looking at the Dallas Chamber of Commerce. There is a very large Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as well. I wonder if there's any possibility of considering maybe reaching out to those folks.
By all means, yes, sir, we can. The Dallas Chamber has just always served as kind of the economic development clearinghouse for kind of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, especially the Dallas area. But by all means, we're open to all ways that we can reach out to different prospects. So we'll definitely reach out to them and see what opportunities that they have to partner with. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Mr. Cooks.
can I just add to that? No, Jeanette was next, but not only you look at the Dallas Chamber and the Hispanic Chamber, you have Hispanic contractors, you have black contractors, you have Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce. So I think we need to add all of those to our list.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Oh, Mr. Jameson.
I'll do it one more. Go back to page 70. Yeah, this one. The 15 new, the two new restaurants. Is that Papa's and who was the other one?
And then also have our burgers opened.
Okay. And then the 15 new businesses. Was that the small businesses?
It's a variety.
The
Yes,
varieties.
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
all
sir.
right. Thank you. Varieties. Small businesses.
Oh, Ms. Jameson.
Yes, I was curious about, you said that the properties that the city owns that
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
marketing. So I know Toyota property, Toyota property. What other property do we own?
There's a number of, I don't know the exact number, I'll be honest with you, but there is a number of city properties the city has acquired over the years for different reasons. Some of them have to do with liens and that type of thing.
Well, I would be curious about that. I want to know the list of those because I also saw that on the work plan. And I don't know of a list of properties that we've acquired.
I'm sure that that would be something definitely that we could supply for the city council to review. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right. Nothing else. Moving on to item 6C now, the annual report.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Every year, we do have to provide an annual report from the DCEDC, and so I'm happy to do that this year. The community, and what we do is we look at the economic development recap of the amount of dollars that have been invested back into the community, either from the EDC or from partners. So the community dollars invested as a result of DCEDC participation equaled $3,613,000. This, if you'll remember, included such projects as Russell Glen, that's the former Dickey's Barbecue building, as well as Paleo Partners, that was the former bank building on Cedar Ridge, and a number of other ones, but those are just a couple highlights. In terms of community development project dollars, these are the dollars that the EDC invest back in the community through our different, for instance, our debt payments to the field house. We pay the debt payment on the field house. We do pay the debt payment on the park bonds. And then as well as Keep Duncanville Beautiful, beautification efforts. So things like that we invested back into for community dollars. That equaled $1,213,289. And then in terms of economic development project dollars, these are actual dollars that the EDC has put towards development projects. This would include basically our incentives or property that the EDC has purchased. The majority of this is for our demolition rebuild program. We did have those 2 applicants this year, and then we also had some design incentive grants for paint grants and different things like that. And that equaled $608,256.07. In addition, from our participation, either for the jobs created or retained by the projects that the EDC participated in, it equaled 222 for the year. In terms of community development recap, as you know, the proposition that created the Type B funds in '95, they also, at that point, a portion of those went to assist with the building of the library and recreation center. And so that's just been something that's continued every year since then, is to kind of give you an update on the usage of both of those facilities. So you can see the different numbers there in terms of the number of visitors to the library, the materials checked out, the computer uses, and then as well as the recreation center visits. I do want to tell you, obviously you can see that there are some differences in some of those numbers. I have spoke to both of the directors from those departments, and we did change over in software this year, and so they haven't really seen, in fact, a number of their programs have even been enhanced and expanded in terms of actual visitors, but they have seen some change with that different software. So we're looking to see what that is in the future, so you should see that number definitely increase. The status of existing Type B projects, and I apologize, that should be the 2010 park bonds. I apologize for that. That's what I spoke about earlier in terms of part of those community dollars. The DCEDC paid $493,453 for those for that debt service payment. For the field house that we spoke about earlier, that equated to $536,550. In addition, the W&B Service Company, the final payment of $27,669.13 was provided, which completed their incentive and closed that project out. SWH Duncanville, otherwise known as the Hampton Inn and Suites, their $45,000 grant that the EDC's portion was paid, and so that completed their grant. Now, I do want to remind City Council that they still have an incentive out there that the City Council had approved. That won't be coming really up until next year, and that's a performance agreement, so it's based on the amount of sales tax or hotel motel tax that they generate. So that'll be coming to you here in the next year. In addition, also the DCEDC approved $190,000 for demolition of structures, as you all know, for the property located at 730 East I-20. The board also approved $36,000 for the land study of the property. The demolition was later postponed until the land study could be done, and as we spoke about earlier, we are in the process of getting that underway. In terms of Duncanville or DCEDC meeting highlights. I don't want to go through all these. I have a lot of pages here. But overall, just for January highlights, we approved the $150,000 loan. In addition, February, we held the public hearing and approved a paint grant. You can see down there and a facade grant. In April 22nd, you'll see that the board also approved a paint grant for Redbird Skateland. In addition, the board did approve the 2019-2020 Community Enhancement Program. They did amend the budget to include the $45,000 incentive that they had previously approved from the prior year. The reason why we had to do that is that the hotel had been postponed slightly in terms of when the opening was, and so that skewed the fiscal years of when that payment would be made. In addition, they also did approve the budget to include the $190,000 for the abatement, for the asbestos abatement and demolition of the property we spoke about earlier. In May, they approved an amendment to the budget to include the market study, and also they held a public hearing regarding a proposed incentive to W&B, and that was for $847,564. The public hearing was held. However, that item, after further working with the company at this point, that item did not come back for a vote as we waited on the company to move forward with that. June 24th, the board did approve the FY 19-20 budget, but this also included the cost of the intern position that I spoke about earlier in my quarterly report. In June, the board did approve, they had the public hearing for the request for the demolition grant this is the former Dickey's Barbecue building, and you can see there that they had initially requested $246,750. On July 12th, the board did approve a grant for them, but they approved the grant for $157,261.82. In addition, at that meeting, they also approved the Paleo Partners Agreement, that's the bank building that we spoke about earlier, for $22,426. In July, the board also approved a grant to the police department for $26,000 for a trailer-mounted camera system. This was to aid in business retention to help curb any issues that they were having in certain areas of commercial development. And they've moved that around, and they approved that it's been very effective for their efforts. August 26th, you'll see that the board did vote to partner with the city to assist with the removal of the underground storage tanks for the former Shamyville property. An amount was to be voted on at a later date. This has been postponed until we can work on getting those tanks removed and possibly finding a prospect for that property. On September 23rd, the City Council, as you all know, and the EDC held the joint meeting and voted to re-engage Insight Research to complete that land study that we spoke about earlier. In October, the board also approved writing a letter of support for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department for grant for the City of Duncanville's Armstrong Park project, which the Parks Department is heading that up. In December, you can see again, as I noted earlier, that the board did re-elect our officers, and they did hold a public hearing and approve a design incentive grant for a sign for Diane Clark, which owns Lady Love Tax Service in the amount of $1,431.86. Additional activities, you can see that here's just a few pictures. The board, as we talked about earlier, was involved with attended the State of the City address. In addition, they took a driving tour, an economic development driving tour, and they held their planning session. They also attend the Flavor of Duncanville and have a booth every year and engage the residents in terms of what they would like to see for economic development here in the city of Duncanville. In addition, they did attend the Best Southwest Regional Economic Development Luncheon. They met with existing businesses and participated in different site tours. They did attend economic development training workshops. They attended ribbon cuttings for new businesses. They did attend business recruitment events and town hall meetings as well. So with that, thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
On the news last night on Channel 5, goes back to the library report. The city of Dallas is reporting their introduction of Wi-Fi hotspots into their libraries. We've had them for years.
Yes, sir.
Which means we're not telling our citizens enough, and the city of Dallas is, in terms of getting their information public. I was chagrined to see the city of Dallas making such a big deal and getting Channel 5 News to put it on their 10 o'clock news. And but we've been loaning out Wi-Fi hotspots for what, 3-4 years now, I guess it is. So maybe some kind of effort to, I know the library's a little off your, a little out of your wheelhouse, but looking at that to make our citizens more aware of we're doing something that the city of Dallas is just figuring out how to do.
Yes, sir. And I do believe that was promoted when that effort was first initiated, but it might be a good time to look at that again. So yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And one other question, I seem to remember a line item in the budget for Costco. Is that's completed?
Yes, sir. That was completed in 2016.
2016, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are at the end of our meeting, and the timestamp, we are adjourned at 8:51. Thank you.